Before we dive into this chilling tale, make sure to hit like and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories. You won't want to miss the true dark accounts I'm about to share. So sit tight and let's begin. It was a Friday morning, September 16th, 2023, in the quiet town of Clearwater, a small city known more for its wide-open fields and simple life than anything else. The kind of place where nothing ever seemed to change. I've always found peace. In the monotony of small towns, no surprises, no drama, just a routine. But that day, I was about to find out how quickly that peace could shatter. I wasn't planning on anything out of the ordinary. I had a couple of hours free from work, so I decided to take a small road trip to clear my head. Nothing too big, just a drive to the edge of town, the kind where you could lose yourself in the long, empty stretches of road, with only the sound of the engine humming and the occasional rustle of the wind in the trees. I didn't expect anything unusual to happen, but I should have known better. As I packed a small bag for the trip, I thought about the old highway I had read about. People around here used to talk about it, but only in hushed tones. The one that led out of Clearwater, winding through some old forests and abandoned places. Most folks avoided it, not because it was dangerous, but because it was strange. No one really knew what was out there. Maybe that was what drew me in. I remember driving down Main Street, the same street I'd taken 1,000 times. The road. Signs flickered in the sunlight, and everything felt like it always did. Normal. But something changed once I crossed out of town. The road immediately felt different, like it was pulling me somewhere. The trees on either side of the road seemed to grow taller, their branches twisting like they were reaching for the sky. The air felt thicker, harder to breathe. Maybe it was just the isolation of the place, but it didn't feel right. I didn't know why, but I kept driving, telling myself I'd be fine. The car's tires hummed against the pavement as I passed the first few abandoned buildings. I couldn't tell if they were once homes or shops, but they were long gone now. Their windows were shattered, doors hanging by a thread, looking like they'd been untouched for years. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had happened here. Something bad. The farther I went, the more the road seemed to narrow. I glanced at the GPS, but the screen was blurry, as if the map was fading. Recalculating, it kept saying. But there were no options, no way to turn back. The road ahead stretched on endlessly, and I felt a strange pull to keep going. Chill ran down my spine. Then, just as I thought about turning around, I saw it. Off in the distance, a small figure standing by the side of the road. At first, I thought it was a person, but the figure was too still, too out of place. I slowed down, heart pounding, trying to figure out what I was seeing. The figure didn't move, not even a flinch. I rolled down my window, just a crack to listen. Nothing, no sounds, no rustling of leaves. Just silence. It was then that I felt it, the unmistakable sensation of being watched. I snapped my head back toward the figure, but it was gone. Just vanished. No sign of where it had gone, no footsteps. In the dust, nothing. I hesitated, my fingers tightening on the steering wheel. Something about that figure felt wrong, like it shouldn't have been there at all. I drove on faster now, heart still racing. But as I passed the spot where the figure had stood, I couldn't help but glance back in the rearview mirror. There was nothing behind me, just a long stretch of road fading into the trees. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. That's when the first doubt hit me. Was this place really as empty as it seemed? Or was something else out there, something that had been waiting for someone to come along? Someone. Like me? The road ahead seemed endless, but there was no turning back. I knew then, something was about to happen. I couldn't stop myself from glancing at the rearview mirror every few seconds, expecting to see something, anything. But the road was still empty, just the quiet hum of my car cutting through the silence. The trees on both sides of the road loomed like dark sentinels, their twisted branches barely swaying in the breeze. It felt like the whole world had gone still, like time itself had paused, but I pushed on. I didn't want to let fear control me, even though every instinct in me was screaming to turn around and go back. The thought of being lost in this place, where nothing made sense, gnawed at my mind. But I kept telling myself that it was just my imagination running wild. People had driven these roads for years, right? There was nothing here to be afraid of. The road dipped slightly, and I came to a small town. Or at least, it looked like it. Was once a town. The buildings were old, worn-down shells of what they might have been. The windows were boarded up, the doors locked tight. The place looked like it hadn't seen a soul in years, yet there was a strange energy here, a lingering presence. I rolled the window down a bit more, hoping for some fresh air, but the air felt thick, almost suffocating. I slowed the car as I passed what seemed to be a gas station. It was abandoned too, but the pumps were still there, rusted and forgotten. A single tattered sign hung above the door, no vacancy. The words seemed to hang in the air, like a warning. But I didn't stop. I wasn't planning on staying here long. As I drove through the empty streets, I noticed a figure standing at the far end of the town. A man. He was tall with broad shoulders, and he was staring directly at me. I felt that same chill crawl up my spine, but I couldn't look away. I don't know why, but I slowed down as I passed him. He didn't move, didn't even blink. Just stood there watching. I should have kept going, but I felt the strange urge to turn around, to go back and ask him something, anything. But before I could act on it, he turned and walked into the shadows, disappearing like he was never there. A shiver ran through me. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe he was just a local. But then why did it feel like I wasn't supposed to be here? Why did every instinct in my body tell me to leave? I pressed my foot down on the gas and left the town behind, but the feeling of being watched didn't go away. It clung to me like a shadow, growing darker the longer I drove. The road ahead seemed to stretch on forever, the trees closing in, tighter with each passing mile. I didn't realize it at the time, but I had made a wrong turn somewhere. The GPS was still malfunctioning, showing me nothing but an empty screen. There were no signs, no landmarks, just endless road. I felt like I was trapped in a loop, a never-ending cycle of asphalt and trees. I tried to calm myself down, but the sense of unease only deepened. It was like something was pulling me forward, urging me to keep driving. I couldn't stop. And then, in the distance, I saw another figure standing by the side of the road. This time, it was a woman. She was dressed in a long, flowing white dress, her hair tangled in the wind. She didn't look like she belonged here, like she was out of place. I could see her face now, pale and gaunt, her eyes hollow. She raised one hand as if to wave me down, but I couldn't bring myself to stop. I drove past her quickly, my heart pounding in my chest. I glanced back in the rearview mirror, expecting to see her still standing there, but there was nothing. Just the endless road behind me that my hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. Something was terribly wrong. I had to get out of here. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't meant to leave. Not yet. The road ahead curved sharply, and for the first time, I noticed something different. The trees were more twisted, now their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The sky had grown darker, too, the clouds thick and heavy, as if they were about to collapse on top of me. And then, a sound. A low, guttural noise from somewhere deep in the woods, too far for me to pinpoint. It was almost like a growl, a low, vibrating hum that seemed to come from all directions. My heart skipped a beat. I pressed the gas pedal harder, desperate to escape whatever it was that was following me. But the road didn't seem to end. It only seemed to stretch on, a winding, endless path through the darkening trees. I tried to shake it off, but I knew I wasn't alone. Something was out there. Something was watching me, and it wasn't going to let me leave. The air inside the car felt heavier now, suffocating almost. I couldn't escape the feeling that the road was closing in on me, that the forest was pressing in on all sides, narrowing the space, making it harder to breathe. Every turn, every bend in the road felt like I was being led deeper into something I couldn't see, but I could feel it like a presence in the air, just waiting for me to make a mistake. I glanced at the gas gauge. It was close to empty. I hadn't seen a gas station in miles, and the nearest one was back in that strange town. My hands trembled as I gripped the wheel tighter. It was ridiculous to go back there. I didn't even want to think about that woman or the man who had been standing by the side of the road. The car jolted suddenly, and the engine sputtered. For a moment, I thought it was just my nerves, but then it happened again. The car shuddered as if it were about to stall. I cursed under my breath, slamming my fist against the steering wheel. This wasn't happening. Not now. I tried to restart the engine, but it sputtered and died again. Panic hit me like a wave. My heart raced, and I pulled the key from the ignition. And tried again. Nothing. The car was dead. The silence that followed was unbearable. There was no sound, no wind, no birds, no animals, just the faint hum of something I couldn't place. Something in the air. I sat there for a moment, frozen, trying to gather my thoughts. My mind raced. What if I was stuck here? What if no one was coming to help? The road, the woods, the twisted trees, they all felt like they were closing in. On me, my chest tightened. I needed to get out of here. I needed to find help. I stepped out of the car, my feet heavy on the gravel. The cold hit me immediately. I pulled my jacket tighter around me as I looked around. There was no sign of life, no movement. The road behind me stretched out like an empty vein, leading me back to nowhere. The wind whispered through the trees. And for a brief moment, I thought I heard footsteps behind me. I whipped around, but there was nothing. Just the trees and the road. But I wasn't alone. I could feel it, that presence. Something was out there, watching, waiting. I started walking, hoping to find a way out of this mess. The road was empty, just like everything else around me, and yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being led somewhere. Every step felt like I was following an invisible trail, like I was a part of something I couldn't understand. I walked for what felt like miles, my feet dragging in the thick dust of the road. The trees grew denser, their twisted branches blocking the light, making it feel like I was walking in the dark. But the sun was still up, and the sky had only begun to darken. It wasn't right. It felt like time was bending, like the world itself was holding its breath. And then I saw it, a small weathered sign on the side of the road. I stumbled toward it, my heart skipping in my chest. The letters were faded, barely readable, but I could make out a few words. Welcome to the end. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I stepped back, almost tripping over my own feet. That's when I heard it. The low hum again, louder this time, vibrating in my chest. My blood ran cold. I was no longer alone. I turned and looked. Down the road, where I had just come from, nothing. But then, a figure. It was barely visible at first, just a shape moving through the shadows. But as it came closer, I could see it more clearly. It was a man. Tall, hunched, his face hidden in the darkness of his hood. He was walking slowly toward me, his steps deliberate, measured. I could feel the weight of his gaze, even though I couldn't see his eyes. I froze, unable to move, unable to speak. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body wouldn't respond. The man stopped about 10 feet away from me, and for a long moment, neither of us moved. Then, he spoke. "It's not the road that traps you," he said in a voice that sounded like it came from deep within the earth. "It's the path you've already walked." His words didn't make sense, but somehow they hit me in a way that I couldn't explain. I felt them deep in my chest, like they were meant for me. The silence stretched on, and I didn't know what to do. My mind was racing, but my feet felt like they were glued to the ground. I couldn't tear my eyes away from him, couldn't understand why I was still standing there. "Get back on the road," he said softly. "The Watcher is waiting." At that moment, everything shifted. The trees seemed to groan, their branches stretching out, as if they were alive, as if they were reaching for me. The sky darkened even more, and the air grew thick with something I couldn't explain. My breath became shallow, and I felt myself being pulled toward the road again, drawn back to the car. But I knew I had to go. I knew I couldn't stay here. Not with him. Not with whatever this place was. I turned, and for the first time, I heard the footsteps behind me. Not the man's. These were different. They were closer now, closer than they had ever been. And then I realized I wasn't alone anymore. I couldn't move fast enough. My legs felt like they were encased in cement as I stumbled back towards the car. My mind was a blur, trying to make sense of everything. But the only thing that was clear was the growing sound of footsteps behind me. They were heavy, deliberate, and getting closer. I could hear the crunch of gravel, the unmistakable sound of something or someone approaching. My heart thudded in my chest, and every instinct screamed at me to run, but my body felt frozen, trapped in place. The darkness seemed to close in, thickening with every step I took. I reached the car, my shaking hands fumbling for the door handle. It took everything I had to pull it open, and when I finally managed, I threw myself inside, slamming the door shut. The sound of the lock clicking into place felt like a fleeting moment of safety, but I knew it wouldn't last long. I quickly started the engine again, praying it would work, but the car sputtered weakly and died for a moment before roaring to life. I hit the gas, and the car shot forward, tires skidding on the gravel. But just as I thought I had escaped, a loud bang echoed through the car. Something had hit the window. My heart stopped. I didn't look. I didn't dare. I just kept driving, pushing the car harder, faster, as if the road itself was trying to swallow me whole. The trees on either side of me blurred, their twisted branches reaching out like fingers trying to pull me into the darkness. I glanced in the rearview mirror, and for a split second, I saw something. A figure standing at the edge of the road, watching me. No, not watching, waiting. It was the same man, the one I had seen earlier, but now he wasn't alone. There were others with him, figures, shapes moving in the shadows. I couldn't make them out clearly, but I could feel their presence. It was suffocating. My foot pressed harder on the pedal, and the car sped up, faster and faster, until I could hear the engine straining, groaning under the pressure. The road twisted ahead of me, bending and turning, but all I could think about was getting out of this place. I had to leave. I had to escape. The trees started thinning out, and I thought for a brief moment that I was finally breaking free. But then, out of nowhere, the road split into two. A sign at the fork said, "This way," in fading red letters, but it wasn't the sign that caught my attention. It was the road itself. It looked different. The asphalt was cracked, uneven, and something about it felt wrong. But the other road, the one I had come from, was even darker now, the shadows deeper. I didn't know which way to go. My eyes flicked between the two options, the pressure mounting in my chest. The footsteps that had been echoing behind me were now gone, but the feeling of being hunted still hung in the air. The figures hadn't followed me, but their presence lingered, like they were watching, waiting for me to make a choice. I had no time to think. I had to decide, and fast. I veered toward the left, taking the darker, older path. It felt like the wrong choice, but I didn't know what else to do. The moment I turned, the air seemed to change. It grew colder. The sky darkened, the trees pressing in closer, their branches scratching against the car like claws. I could feel someone right behind me. It was more than just a presence. It was real, and it was getting closer. I didn't dare look back, but I could feel it. The weight of eyes on me, the sensation of something moving in the darkness just beyond my vision. The road stretched on, and all I wanted to do was reach the end. But no matter how fast I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that the road would never end. It was endless. A loop, a trap. The car hit a pothole, throwing me off balance. I slammed my hand against the wheel to steady myself. The engine groaned, and for a moment, I thought it was going to stall again. But it didn't. It kept going. And I kept driving, desperate to outrun whatever was following me. And then, just as I was beginning to think there was no way out, I saw something ahead of me. A faint light in the distance, a flicker of hope. It looked like a house or maybe a cabin. It was the first sign of life I had seen in hours. I didn't think twice. I pushed the car harder, trying to reach that light, hoping it was a sign of safety, of something normal. But as I got closer, something wasn't right. The light flickered again, and then it disappeared, only to reappear a few seconds later closer now. As if it was moving with me. The car jerked, and the headlights flickered, illuminating the figure of a woman standing in front of the cabin. Her face was obscured, her long hair covering her features, but I could feel her eyes locked on me. She didn't move, not even a muscle. But I could hear her voice, soft, almost like a whisper. "Why are you here?" she asked. "You don't belong." The words sent a chill through my body, and for the first time, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know what to do. And that's when I heard it, the growl. Low, guttural, like something ancient. Something that had been waiting in the dark. It was coming from the woods behind the cabin. It was getting closer. I wasn't alone. Not anymore. The woman took a step forward, her face still hidden in shadow. She raised her hand, pointing at me. "You can't escape. You're already part of it." I couldn't breathe. The growl grew louder, closer. And as I reached for the door handle, I realized the truth. I had been walking this path for far too long. And now there was no way out. The growl was no longer distant. It was right there behind me, so close I could feel the vibrations in my chest. My breath hitched, and a wave of panic washed over me, making my heart race faster than it ever had before. I turned the key in, the ignition, hoping against hope that the car would start again, but it refused. The engine only groaned in protest, as though mocking my desperation. I slammed my fist against the steering wheel, the frustration turning into fear. This was it. I was trapped. The woman's figure remained in front of the cabin, still motionless, her hand outstretched, as if waiting for something. Her presence sent a wave of unease crashing over me. There was something in her stillness, in the way she stood there, that felt wrong, like she wasn't entirely human. The growl grew louder, and then, just as quickly, everything went silent. Not a sound. Not even the wind rustling through the trees. It was as though the world had stopped breathing, holding its breath, waiting for the next move. My eyes darted around, scanning for any sign of movement, any hint of what was coming. But there was nothing. The woman's figure remained motionless, and the darkness behind the cabin seemed to stretch on forever, swallowing the faint light from my headlights. Then, a shift. Something in the air changed. The woman's hand moved. Slowly, deliberately, and she pointed toward the woods, toward the source of the growl. "It's here," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the silence. "It's always been here." I didn't understand. What was she talking about? I was on the verge of screaming, of demanding answers, when a shadow moved in the corner of my vision. It was fast, too fast to be human. And it wasn't alone. Out of the darkness came more figures, shapes emerging from the trees like something out of a nightmare. Tall, gaunt figures, their faces obscured by the blackness, their movements jerky and unnatural. I couldn't make out their features, but I could feel their eyes on me, watching, waiting. I was paralyzed, unable to move, unable to look away. My entire body screamed at me to run, but I couldn't bring myself to act. It was as though my body and mind had betrayed me, locked in place by fear. Then I saw it. The thing that had been making the growling sound dotted emerged from the shadows, its massive form hulking in the darkness. Its eyes glowed an eerie, unnatural red, and its mouth was full of sharp, jagged teeth. It was like a predator, no, something worse than a predator. It was a force of nature, something born from nightmares. Its skin was mottled and covered in patches of what looked like old dried blood. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My only instinct was to run, but my body wouldn't obey. The thing took a step toward me, its eyes locked onto mine. And then it stopped, as if waiting for something. The woman's voice broke through the silence again, soft, almost pleading. "You have to choose." I didn't understand. "Choose what?" "Choose who survives," she said, her voice more insistent now. "You or them." The creatures, whatever they were, moved closer, and I realized, in that moment of clarity, that the woman wasn't offering me a way out. She was giving me an ultimatum. A choice I couldn't understand, but one I was running out of time to make. I glanced at the car, at the trees, at the figures closing in around me. The road I had come from, the road ahead, none of it mattered anymore. It all felt like a trap, a loop, a game. And I was the one caught in it. And then I saw it. The thing that had been hidden in the shadows all along. The one thing I hadn't noticed before. The man. The one I had seen earlier. The one who had told me I didn't belong here. He stood in the doorway of the cabin now, his face still hidden by the darkness, but his presence was undeniable. His hand twitched slightly, and then I realized what he was holding. A knife. A long curved blade that gleamed in the faint light. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't just being hunted. I was part of something much darker. Something that had been waiting for me. The woman stepped forward, her eyes glowing now, the darkness around her thickening. "You'll understand soon enough," she said, her voice echoing in my ears. "It's always been this way." My head was spinning, and the world around me felt like it was folding in on itself. The figures moved closer, surrounding me, and I could hear their breath. Now slow, ragged, like they were savoring the moment before the end. I had no choice. No way out. The figures were everywhere now, their eyes gleaming, their movements synchronized, like a pack of wolves closing in on their prey. And then, as the man raised the knife, everything stopped. Time froze. The growl faded into nothing. The woman's voice, the figures, the cabin, all of it vanished, leaving nothing but an unbearable silence. For a moment, I thought I had lost my mind. But then, a voice my own shouted in the darkness, "Run!" And just like that, the world snapped back into focus. The figures were gone. The woman was gone. The man with the knife disappeared into the shadows. The only thing left was the sound of my own breath, heavy and quick, as I stumbled backward, away from the cabin. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The road was still there, but now it felt different. It felt endless. I ran. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know if I would ever be able to escape this place, but I ran. And I didn't stop. My legs burned with every step, the weight of my fear dragging me down, but I didn't dare slow down. The shadows seemed to chase me, stretching long and twisted across the road, reaching for my heels. Every breath I took felt too shallow, too fast, as though my lungs couldn't keep up with the panic that coursed through me. The road was dark now, pitch black except for the weak light coming from my headlights. I couldn't look behind me. The images of those figures, those twisted, shadowed things, still lingered in my mind, clawing at my thoughts. I had to get out of this place. I had to survive. I stumbled forward, tripping over uneven ground as the road beneath me began to shift, like it was folding in on itself. The air grew colder, heavier. The farther I went, the more disorienting it became. My surroundings blurred, shifting from the same old trees to a kind of distorted, unfamiliar landscape that felt like a nightmare taking form. It wasn't just the woods anymore. It was the entire place. Everything was wrong. The horizon was wrong. The very air felt wrong. I kept running, but with each step, the road seemed to stretch out further. No matter how fast I went, the end was nowhere in sight. The trees the figures appeared again, flickering at the edges of my vision, just out of reach. Their whispers were getting louder now, but I couldn't make out the words. Only the feeling of being followed, of something waiting for me to falter. The silence was worse. It was worse than any sound. The absence of noise, the complete lack of life, it was suffocating. I don't know how long I ran. It felt like hours. My muscles screamed in protest, but I couldn't stop. If I stopped, I would be caught. I would never get out of here. I had to keep moving. And then I saw it, a light. Faint, but unmistakable, glowing in the distance. It wasn't the same kind of light as before, the one I had seen by the cabin. This one was steady, bright, almost welcoming. A house, a building. Something human. I didn't care. I didn't think. I just ran toward it, praying it was real, praying it was the salvation I had been looking for. As I neared the light, the world around me began to shift again. The trees started to thin out, and the pavement beneath me smoothed out, like I had crossed some kind of boundary. It felt like I was coming back to reality, to somewhere safe. I reached the building. It was a small, old house, not much different from the cabins I had passed earlier, but this one seemed different, solid, real. A sense of familiarity washed over me, but I couldn't explain why. I ran to the door and banged on it, my knuckles raw from the force. "Hello," I shouted, my voice trembling. "Is anyone there?" Nothing. I banged again, harder this time. The door creaked open, just a crack, and I saw a figure standing inside. A woman, the same woman from the cabin. Her face was still hidden, in shadow, but her eyes, those eyes glowed with an unnatural light. "You shouldn't have come here," she said, her voice soft, almost mournful. "There's no way out." My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "I just need help. Please, I just need." "You're already too far gone," she interrupted. "This place it's never let anyone leave." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I could feel the floor beneath me swaying, like the ground itself was pulling me deeper. Panic surged in my chest again, but I couldn't stop myself from stepping inside. The door shut behind me with a soft thud, and suddenly the room was filled with that same suffocating darkness. The walls seemed to close in on me, and the light from outside flickered, disappearing altogether. "No," I whispered. "No, this can't be happening. I just need to get out." The woman stepped closer, her face finally emerging from the shadows. She wasn't human anymore, not entirely. Her eyes were too bright, too unnatural. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her lips parted slightly, revealing teeth that were too sharp to be real. "You've been chosen," she said, her voice eerily calm. "You are part of the cycle now." I stumbled back, my chest heaving. "Cycle? What do you mean?" I was just driving. "I didn't ask for this." The woman didn't answer. Instead, she motioned to the walls around us. They were covered in old, faded pictures. They were memories, memories of people who had been here before. Their faces were twisted with fear, their eyes wide open, but their bodies were frozen in strange, unnatural positions. Each one was different, but there was something familiar about them. Something that made my blood run cold. I felt the air in the room grow heavier. The walls seemed to pulse, as if alive. Something was coming. I could feel it. The woman raised her hand and the door behind me slammed shut. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned toward her. "You can't, but..." I didn't finish the sentence. The figures from the road, They were here. I could feel them in the corners of the room, moving just beyond my vision. They were closing in. "You don't have a choice," the woman whispered. "This is where you belong now." And as the shadows closed in, I realized what she meant. There was no escape. This place, this road, this cycle, it had claimed me, and it would never let me go. Not now. Not ever. I couldn't breathe. The air felt thick, like I was drowning in it, every breath harder to take than the last. The room around me started to shift, the walls distorting as if they were being pulled and stretched by some unseen force. The pictures on the walls began to twitch, the faces in them contorting into grotesque shapes, mouths opening in silent screams. I turned, desperate for any escape, but the door, the one I had entered through, was gone. It was as though the house itself had swallowed it whole. My fingers scraped against the cold, smooth walls, the faint pulse beneath my touch like the beat of a heart. Someone was in here with me, moving just beyond the edge of my vision. I could hear the whispers, faint at first then, growing louder like a chorus of voices speaking in tongues, all overlapping and indistinguishable. Then, the woman's voice broke through, calm and detached. "You can never leave this place. You've crossed the threshold." I spun around to face her, my throat tightening with panic. "What do you mean? I just ... I was just trying to survive. I didn't ask for this." Her lips curved into a smile that was far too wide, stretching unnaturally across her face. "Survival? That's what you think this is about?" she whispered, her voice sending a chill down my spine. "Survival is a lie. This is the end of the road. You can't outrun what you've become." Before I could respond, the room seemed to twist again, and I felt the floor beneath me give way. I gasped as my feet left the ground, my body thrown into the air as if gravity had ceased to exist. I was falling, but not down, not like I expected. It felt like I was being pulled, dragged somewhere deeper into the house. The darkness around me grew thicker, colder, until I couldn't see anything at all. I screamed, but no sound came out. The pressure in my chest was unbearable, and for a moment, I thought I might pass out. But then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. The sensation of falling ceased, and I was on solid ground again. I blinked, disoriented, and looked around. I was no longer in the room with the woman. The walls had changed, and the air smelled different, stale and damp. I was standing in a hallway now, the floor creaking beneath my feet. The door that had been behind me was gone, replaced by another, this one old and weathered, like it had been here for centuries. I stepped forward, my heart hammering, unsure of what I was even doing. I had to move. I had to find a way out. My mind raced, but I couldn't shake the feeling that no matter what I did, I was only moving deeper into the nightmare. I reached for the doorknob, and when I turned it, the door creaked open slowly, revealing a room bathed in dim, flickering light. The shadows inside were long, stretching across the walls, and in the center of the room was something familiar. It was me. I froze. The figure in the center of the room looked just like me, just like I had, only different. His face was pale, his eyes empty, as if something had drained all life from him. He stood perfectly still, staring straight ahead, his body rigid and unblinking. I stepped into the room. My breath caught in my throat, but the moment I crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me, locking me in. I whipped around, my hands frantic against the wood, but it wouldn't budge. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice barely audible, my throat tight with fear. The figure didn't respond. Instead, he moved slowly, deliberately, his eyes never leaving mine. As he approached, I felt something shift in the air, like the room itself was warping. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, louder and louder, thudding like a drumbeat. He reached out to touch me, and as his hand made contact with mine, the world seemed to collapse. Suddenly, I was no longer standing in the room. I was somewhere else. I was in the woods again, but this time it was different. The trees towered over me like giants, their branches twisting into strange shapes, their leaves rustling with a sound that didn't belong to any wind I had ever known. The sky above was pitch black, filled with swirling clouds that seemed to pulse with a dark energy, like they were alive. I looked around, disoriented, and then I saw them, the figures. The ones from the road, the ones I had run from. They were standing in the distance, watching me with those glowing eyes, their shapes moving unnaturally. But there was something else now. In the center of the figures stood a massive shape, larger than any of the others, its outline indistinct, shifting like smoke. It was the thing that had been following me, the thing that had been hunting me all this time. The growl rumbled from deep within it, and I felt the ground tremble beneath me. My body froze again, caught between the need to run and the inescapable pull of whatever was here. And then I realized the truth. I wasn't in control of any of this. This wasn't just a dream or a nightmare. This was something older, something that existed outside of time. I had crossed into a place where the rules didn't apply. A place where I was no longer the one being hunted. I was the prey. And the creatures, the figures, they weren't waiting for me to escape. They were waiting for me to accept what I had become. The silence was deafening. It stretched on for what felt like hours, and then the darkness around me pulsed. The air thickened, the shadows deepening, swirling toward me, as if they were alive. And then I felt it. A hand cold and clammy gripped my shoulder from behind. Didn't turn. I couldn't. All I could do was wait. Wait for whatever came next. And it did. The grip on my shoulder tightened, but I couldn't bring myself to move. Every instinct in my body screamed to break free, to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. It was like I was trapped in a thick, invisible web, unable to escape. My heart was hammering so loudly in my chest that it drowned out every other sound, every other thought. Then the voice came low, guttural, like it was coming from the deepest pit of the earth. "You're not leaving." I didn't need to look to know who was behind me. The breath on my neck told me everything. The air turned frigid, colder than I'd ever felt, and the skin on my arms prickled with the sensation of something crawling over me. My throat tightened, but I managed to choke out a single word. "Why?" The hand withdrew, and I heard the faint shuffle of movement behind me. It wasn't the figures anymore. It wasn't the twisted woman or the man with the knife. No. This was something different, something ancient. "Because you've crossed the line," the voice said. "You've stepped into a place that doesn't belong to you. You've come to the edge of the world, and now you can't leave." I slowly turned around, my movements sluggish, as if the very air around me was weighing me down. There, in front of me, was a man. A man who wasn't quite a man at all. His face was distorted, as though it had been melted and reshaped by some unseen force. His eyes were black, empty holes, no pupils, no whites, just darkness. He smiled, but it wasn't a human smile. It was a predator's smile, wide and hungry. And I felt the chill of its promise. "You've met the others, haven't you?" he asked, stepping closer. His voice was thick with amusement, but there was an edge to it, something dark, something that made my blood run cold. I couldn't answer. I couldn't move. "The woman," he continued, his grin widening. "The one you saw in the cabin, she's part of the cycle. We all are. You too, now." I shook my head, trying to step back, but I found myself rooted to the spot. The ground beneath me felt like it was giving way, shifting as if the earth itself was swallowing me whole. "No, I don't understand. I don't belong here." "You never did," he said, his voice low and haunting. "None of you do, but it doesn't matter anymore. The road, you're on it now. You'll never leave it." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, and I felt the weight of them settle over me, suffocating me. This wasn't just some place. This wasn't some random nightmare. This was something bigger, something ancient. A place where the lost were kept, trapped. His smile grew wider, stretching unnaturally. It doesn't matter how hard you try. It doesn't matter how far you run. You can't escape. I felt my chest constrict as the world around me began to darken again. The shadows, those horrible figures, crept closer, inching toward me from the edges of my vision. They were watching, waiting, their eyes glowing, their presence suffocating. The man reached out slowly, his hand hovering just above my face. And in that moment, I saw the truth in his eyes. He wasn't here to hurt me. Not in the way I had thought. He wasn't a creature of flesh and blood. He was something older. Something that thrived on the fear of those who wandered too far. "Remember," he whispered, his breath like ice. "The road always claims its own." I wanted to scream, to fight, to do anything, but my body wouldn't respond. The terror that had gripped me from the moment I stepped onto that cursed road had become a part of me. And now there was no escape. I collapsed to the ground, the weight of his words pressing down on me. I could feel the world around me shifting again, as if everything was slipping away, as if I was being pulled into a void. And then, the darkness consumed me. When I opened my eyes again, everything was still, but nothing was the same. The world had changed. The road had changed. The air felt wrong. And standing before me, waiting patiently in the distance, was the woman. The twisted woman with the glowing eyes. She was the same, but different. "You've learned your place," she said, her voice echoing in my mind. "Now you understand." I didn't want to understand. I didn't want to accept it. But there was no denying it. I was a part of this now. And as the road stretched endlessly before me, I realized something terrible. Something that sank deep into my soul. I had become just another lost soul, another part of the endless cycle. There was no escape. Not for me. Not for anyone who dared to wander too far. I was trapped, and the road ... It would never let me go. Ground beneath me shifted again, but this time, it didn't feel like a change in the landscape. It felt like something within me was being altered, warped. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, each thud more deafening than the last, and yet the world around me remained disturbingly silent. The figures, those twisted beings, stayed in the periphery, their eyes gleaming from the shadows, but they no longer seemed to be moving. They were watching, waiting for something I couldn't understand. The woman, the one who had appeared in the house and now stood in front of me, was still there, her glowing eyes reflecting the same chilling light. As before, she was different, yet unchanged. Her presence felt oppressive, suffocating, like a weight pressing down on my chest. I wanted to run, but every step felt like it took me deeper into the nightmare. "Do you see it now?" Her voice was calm, eerily soothing, as if she were speaking to a child. "This is your place. This is where you belong." I didn't answer. I couldn't. The words lodged in my throat, a heavy lump of dread. I felt my hands shaking, and I gripped them tightly, hoping to steady myself. But there was no escaping the truth she had just laid bare: the road. The endless road that stretched far beyond the horizon. This place, this dark, twisted landscape, was all I had now. There was no way back. There was no going home. I glanced around, trying to find something familiar, something that could give me hope. But everything had turned into a distorted reflection of the world I had known. The trees were now gnarled, their bark peeling off like the skin of a corpse. The air had taken on a sickly metallic scent, like blood that had been left to rot. I felt a tug at my heart, a pang of sorrow for what I had lost: my life, my freedom, everything. But there was no room for grief here. Not in a place like this. In this world, you only had what was given to you. And the moment you tried to escape, you were dragged back in. Why? I found my voice, finally. It came out hoarse, barely a whisper. "Why did you choose me?" What did I do to deserve this? She tilted her head, as if considering the question for the first time. It wasn't about you, she said, her tone almost amused. It was never about you, it's about the road. The road calls to those who are lost, those who think they can outrun their fate. But there is no escape, not here, not in this place. A wave of cold washed over me as her words sank in. This wasn't just some random place I had wandered into. This was a trap, a place designed for the lost, for those who had strayed too far from the path. I wanted to scream, to rage against it. But all I could do was stand there, frozen in place. The road, the house, the twisted figures, they all felt like parts of some dark, eternal loop, a cycle that couldn't be broken. The moment you stepped onto it, you became part of its story. And the story was always the same. You're not special, she continued, her voice now almost a lullaby. You're just another piece in the puzzle, another soul caught in the cycle. And now, you'll never leave. The horror of her words crushed me, but there was something else there, something more terrifying. The realization that I had been a part of this from the very beginning, that I had unknowingly walked into the trap. The road had been calling to me, and I had answered. And now I couldn't escape. I turned my head, trying to find any kind of hope, any kind of exit. But there was nothing. Just the endless stretch of road, the figures watching from the shadows, the woman who stood before me, her eyes gleaming with something almost too ancient to understand. And then, for the first time I heard it, the sound of footsteps, not slow, methodical, heavy. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. I knew what it was, even before I turned around. I could feel it. The air around me seemed to vibrate, like the very ground was pulsing with energy. Someone was coming. I didn't want to turn. I didn't want to face whatever was behind me, but I had no choice. Slowly, I turned, my heart racing, my pulse thudding in my ears, and then I saw it, the figure. The shape, it was massive, towering above me. Its form was impossible to make out, shifting and changing with every second. It was like a shadow, but not. Its outline was blurred, jagged, like it was made of darkness itself. Its presence was overwhelming, suffocating. I felt my stomach twist in on itself, my breath hitching as I realized it was no longer just a figure. It was the thing that had been following me from the beginning. The creature, whatever it was, stepped forward. Its movements were slow, deliberate, like it was savoring my fear. You're here now, it said, its voice a low growl that seemed to echo from every corner of the world around me. And now you belong. The words crashed over me like a wave, drowning me in hopelessness. There was no escaping. There was no running. This was it. This was where I was meant to be. This was the end of the road. And as the figure came closer, its dark eyes glinting with something that felt like malice, I realized the truth. I had never been meant to leave. I was a part of the road now, and the road never let go. The air around me grew thick, stifling, as the creature closed in. My legs felt weak, my feet sinking into the ground as if it was made of some kind of sticky tar. The shadow, it was more than a shadow now, its form taking shape like the darkest. Parts of the night loomed over me, casting an all-consuming darkness across everything I could see. I wanted to scream, but my throat was dry, parched, as if the fear had drained me of every ounce of energy. It was like I was drowning in this place, suffocating in the dark. The creature's voice slithered into my mind, twisting and turning the air around me. You think you can escape? You think you can run from what you are? I didn't answer. I couldn't. The words caught in my throat, tangled up with the terror that had taken root deep within me. It was as if my body had forgotten how to fight, how to resist. I could only stand there, frozen, watching the thing move closer. It didn't walk in the way that people did. No, it drifted, floating just above the ground, its eyes gleaming with an unsettling hunger. Its presence, something so ancient and predatory, made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and I felt every inch of my body trembling under its gaze. "You were never meant to leave," the creature whispered, its voice like ice scraping across the skin. "This road, it doesn't let go. Not of you, not of anyone." I tried to back away, but my body wouldn't obey. Every movement felt like I was wading through quicksand, my limbs heavy and slow. Panic clawed at my chest, tightening like a vice as I realized I wasn't just trapped in this place. I was bound to it, to the road, to whatever it was that made this cursed place alive. "Please," I whispered, the words escaping my lips before I could stop them. "Please, let me go. I just want to leave." The creature's laughter echoed around. Emmy, a chilling sound that seemed to vibrate in the very air. It wasn't the kind of laughter that suggested amusement. No, it was a deep, resonant laugh that felt more like an endless dark cry, stretching on forever. The creature tilted its head, studying me, its eyes never leaving mine. "Leave?" it repeated, its voice dripping with something I couldn't name. "You think you can leave after all this time? After the road has claimed you, there is no leaving. You were already lost the moment you took the first step onto this path." A wave of cold hit me, and I collapsed to my knees, my hands clutching at the ground as if I could somehow anchor myself to something solid, something real. But there was nothing. Nothing but the crushing emptiness, the void that stretched out. Before me, around me. It was as though the earth itself had swallowed me whole, trapping me in its endless maw. The creature crouched down in front of me, its form bending and warping like smoke, its face coming so close I could feel the chill of its presence, smell the rot in the air. Its eyes, those black, empty eyes, pierced through me, seeing straight into the depths of my soul. "You thought you could run," it hissed, "but you've already been claimed. You belong to the road now. There's no more running. There's no more escaping. This is your place, and it will be your place forever." My chest tightened as I struggled to take in air, but all I could hear was the sound of my heart beating, echoing in the void. The creature's words sunk into me, wrapping themselves around my mind, tightening like a vice. The road, the endless road. It was never meant to be escaped. The people who wandered onto it were never meant to find their way back. They were all just lost souls, like me, drawn in by something older than time itself. "Why?" I gasped, the word breaking from my throat as the tears welled up in my eyes. "Why me? Why this road?" The creature's grin grew wider, its teeth sharp and jagged like knives. "Why not you?" it asked, its voice now cold, mocking. "Why not anyone? You came here willingly. You sought it out, didn't you? The road calls, and those who are lost will always answer. Always." I closed my eyes, the weight of its words crashing down on me, threatening to crush me under their heaviness. And in that moment, I realized it wasn't just the road that was to blame. It was me. I had stepped onto it willingly, had answered the call, unaware of what I was walking into. I had been drawn in by some dark force, some pull I couldn't even name. And now there was no escape. When I opened my eyes again, the creature was gone. The air still felt heavy, thick with the lingering sense of dread, but it was empty now. The twisted figures that had once surrounded me were gone, as if they had never been there at all. I was alone, but I wasn't free. I stood up, my legs shaky, my body trembling with exhaustion, but something inside me still burned with the need to escape. Even though I knew it was pointless, even though I understood now that there was no way out, a small part of me still held onto the desperate hope that I could find some way to break free. The road stretched out before me, an endless ribbon of asphalt that twisted and turned in impossible ways, leading nowhere. It felt like I was walking in circles, like no matter how far I went, I would always end up in the same place. And then, for the briefest of moments, I thought I saw something. Ahead, a light, Not the eerie glow that had haunted me throughout the journey, but a real, tangible light. It shone through the darkness, soft and welcoming, like a beacon of hope. I hesitated. My heart pounded in my chest as I looked at the light, the promise of freedom flickering in my mind. Maybe, just maybe, this was it, the end of the road. Maybe I could finally escape. I took a step forward, then another. My breath quickened, my pace picking up as I moved toward the light. But with every step I took, the light seemed to move further away. The road stretched on, longer, darker, as if mocking. My every effort, and then the truth hit me, there was no light. There was no way out. The road wasn't going to give me a chance. It never had. It never would. I stopped, the crushing weight of my realization sinking in. The road was my prison now. It always had been, and as I stood there, the light flickering. One last time before disappearing into the darkness, I knew the worst part. I would never escape. I was lost. Forever. The silence that enveloped me was deafening. No more whispers. No more movement in the shadows. Just the sound of my breathing and the dull thrum of my heartbeat. The road stretched out endlessly in front of me, an inescapable loop that seemed to coil tighter around my soul with each passing second. I had accepted it. In some twisted, broken part of my mind, I had understood. The road owned me now. It didn't care who I was or where I came from. It didn't care about my past or my regrets. It had called, and I had answered. And now, I would never leave. Ground beneath me shifted again, almost as if it were alive, but I barely reacted anymore. What was the point? Each time it changed, I would just be pulled back. I would be forced to walk it again, step by endless step, a prisoner in my own mind. But then, just as I had resigned myself to this fate, a noise pierced the stillness. A faint, low cry, almost like a distant scream. I froze every muscle in, my body locking up, instinctively looking around, searching for the source. It was coming from further down the road, but I couldn't see anything in the endless stretch of blackness. I felt it then, an unsettling shift in the air. The pressure around me grew heavier, the darkness closing in like a living thing. The road wasn't just a place. It wasn't just a prison. It was a creature, and it was aware of me. Of all of us. Of everyone who had ever wandered down its cursed path. The cry came again, clearer this time. It was a human voice. A desperate, terrified cry. Help, please. It sounded so real, so raw, so painfully human. A surge of something, fear, compassion, flared up inside me. My body moved on its own, taking a hesitant step toward the sound, then another. The road seemed to respond, its grip loosening just enough for me to move forward, to draw closer to the source of the cry. With each step I took, the cry grew louder, more frantic. But as I neared, the feeling in my gut turned from urgency to dread. The air thickened with an unnatural cold, and the shadows along the road seemed to deepen, growing darker, like the very essence of the night itself had come to life. And then I saw it, a figure small, hunched over, almost childlike, crouching just ahead. It was nothing more than a silhouette against the thick blackness, but the outline was unmistakable. It was human, a person. But something was terribly wrong. Help, please. The voice was weak now, trembling. I moved forward, compelled by an instinct I couldn't explain. My hands reached out, fingers trembling as I took another step toward the figure. And then, the figure stood. It was a woman, her face obscured by a veil of tangled, matted hair. Her hands were outstretched toward me, but they were twisted, misshapen, like they had been broken and reformed in unnatural ways. Her body was thin, almost skeletal, her clothes torn and filthy. The moment she stood, the shadows around her seemed to warp and twist, as if they were part of her, part of the very darkness. Don't help her, a voice rasped in my ear. I spun around, but there was no one there. The voice had come from everywhere, as if the very road itself was warning me, but I couldn't stop myself. I reached for the woman, my fingers brushing the cold air around her. And then, she turned to face me. Her face was pale, too pale, with dark, hollow eyes that seemed to stare straight into my soul. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Just the faintest whisper of breath that carried the stench of decay. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. Her eyes locked with mine, and in that moment, I saw it, the darkness. The road, it was inside her, just like it was inside me. The horror of it was overwhelming, crashing into me like a wave. She wasn't real. She wasn't a person. She was a shadow, a lost soul who had been consumed by the road, just like everyone else. The shadows around her began to stretch, reaching out like tendrils, curling around my legs, pulling at my feet. The cold, the suffocating presence of it all dragged me down, forcing me to my knees. The woman's lips curled into a smile, and it wasn't a smile of comfort or of pity. It was a twisted, horrifying grin, one that belonged to something far older, far more terrible than any human could understand. "Help me," she whispered again, but the words were no longer a plea. They were a command. "Help me, and you'll never leave." My chest tightened, the pressure building until I thought I would collapse from the weight of it. The shadows squeezed tighter, pulling me further into the darkness, and I realized I understood. The road didn't just claim souls, it twisted them. It fed on them. And the moment you tried to help someone, you became part of it. I couldn't help her. I couldn't help anyone, not now. Not in this place. But still, the voice inside my head screamed for me to move, to break free from the grasp of the road. I tried to pull away, but my body was frozen in place. The woman's hands reached out again, and the shadows followed her, pulling me back, closer and closer to the darkness. With every fiber of my being, I resisted, but it was useless. The road was stronger than me, stronger than anything I had ever known. The woman's face twisted into something unrecognizable, the darkness swallowing her whole until she was nothing more than a part of the road, a piece of the nightmare. And then there was nothing. The road stretched out before me again, silent, endless. The woman was gone. The shadows too faded into the night, but I knew I hadn't escaped, not yet. The road was endless. It always had been, hadn't it? I couldn't remember how long I had been walking now, but time felt meaningless here. There was no sun to mark the hours, no sky to separate day from night. Just an infinite stretch of black. Asphalt underfoot, a void on either side, pulling at me, suffocating me. Every step felt like a lifetime, and yet I had no choice but to keep moving forward. But with each step, the weight of what had happened pressed heavier on my chest. The woman, the creature, her hollow eyes, that twisted grin, it all haunted me. Her touch was cold, as though she had become part of the very darkness that surrounded us all, swallowed whole by the road, just as I had feared. The road didn't just trap people here, it changed them, turned them into something else, something unrecognizable. I could feel the change inside me, even if I couldn't fully understand it yet. Something in me had shifted, warped. The road was sinking into my soul, digging into the deepest parts of me. It wasn't just a physical prison anymore. No, it was more than that. The road was consuming me from the inside out, but there was still something left. A spark, a whisper of resistance. As much as the road had claimed me, I was still fighting. I had to fight. Suddenly I noticed it, a shift in the air. A change so subtle that I might have missed it if I hadn't been listening so closely. A rustling sound, like the wind moving through trees, but there were no trees here. No leaves, only the barren emptiness. The road curved up ahead, and at first, I thought it was nothing. Just another turn in the endless path. But then I saw it. A flicker of movement. In the distance, a shape appeared just for a moment before it was gone. A shadow, A figure? A person? I stopped walking, heart pounding in my chest. The cold that had wrapped around me tightened again. It was like I couldn't escape the chill that had taken root inside me, deep within my bones. The figure appeared again. This time, I could see it more clearly. A man. He was standing at the edge of the road, his back to me, his body bent forward like he was listening to something. His silhouette was long and thin, stretched out by the fading light. I couldn't tell if he was real or just another illusion the road had created, but something about him felt different, like he wasn't a part of this place. "Hello?" I called out, my voice breaking the silence. The figure didn't move. But then I saw his head turn slightly, just enough for me to see his face pale drawn, eyes sunken with exhaustion. But there was something else in them. Recognition. I felt a shiver run through me as he slowly started to walk toward me. I didn't know what to do. Should I approach him? Or was he another trap, another twisted thing the road had created to lure me in? He took another step, and then another. Each step he took seemed to create an echo, a ripple in the air around him, as if his very presence was disturbing the fabric of this cursed place. "Don't go near him," the voice whispered in my ear. Again, the voice from earlier. The voice that had warned me about the woman. It was the same low crackling, almost like the road itself was speaking to me, warning me to stay away, but I couldn't stop myself. Something in me, some desperate part of my soul, wanted to believe that this man was real, that he wasn't like the others. He stopped just a few feet away from me, his eyes locking onto mine with a deep, painful understanding. "You're trapped," he said quietly, his voice raw, as if he hadn't spoken in years. "We all are." My throat tightened, the words almost strangling me before I could speak. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. "How long have you been here?" He glanced down at the ground for a moment, his shoulders sagging with a heavy, invisible burden. "I don't know," he whispered, the words barely audible. "It's impossible to know how long we've been here. The road doesn't care about time. It just takes." He looked up at me, his eyes piercing through me. "But you already know that, don't you?" I nodded. How could I not? The road had taken so much from me already. It had taken my freedom, my sense of time, my very sanity. It had twisted everything around me until nothing felt real anymore. "You don't have to be like the others," he continued, his voice low but firm. "You don't have to give in. The road wants you to break, to lose yourself in it. But there's still a chance to fight." A chance to fight? My mind reeled. Could it be possible? Could there really be a way out? I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could form the words, the ground beneath us shifted again, this time with a violent force. It felt like the earth was trembling, shaking beneath our feet, and I stumbled, catching myself against the side of the road. The man looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. "Run!" he shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. "You have to run, now!" But before I could react, the road seemed to come alive. The ground trembled again, and a low, rumbling noise echoed through the air, shaking the very foundation of everything around us. It wasn't just the road anymore. Something else was coming. The man looked at me one last time, his eyes filled with a strange mixture of fear and something else I couldn't name, before he turned and ran down the path. He didn't look back, and as I stood there, frozen, watching him disappear into the darkness, I knew that something terrible was coming. Something far worse than the road, far worse than the creatures that stalked its edges. Something that could consume everything. And this time, it wasn't just the road trying to claim me, that it was something worse that I had to move. I had to find a way out, but with every step I took, the ground beneath me seemed to ripple, pulling at me, dragging me back toward the darkness. The weight of the road was too strong. I had to make it out. I couldn't let the road take me, but I wasn't sure how much longer I could fight. I ran, Every step was a struggle, as if the road itself was trying to trip me, to pull me down into its grasp. The shaking beneath me didn't stop. The rumbling grew louder, more intense, vibrating through my bones, as though the earth itself was breaking apart. I couldn't look back. The figure, the man, had disappeared into the shadows, and I had no idea where he had gone. But I knew one thing for sure. If I stopped now, if I hesitated, I would be lost forever. My chest tightened with every breath, the air thick and cold, almost choking me. The path stretched ahead, but it twisted and curled in impossible directions, like it was alive, reshaping itself with each step I took. The road wasn't just a place anymore. It was a living thing, a creature feeding off my fear, my exhaustion, and it was getting stronger with each passing moment. Then, in the distance, I saw a flicker of light, distant but real. For a second, hope surged in my chest, the kind of hope that makes you believe in the impossible. The light was faint, but it was a sign, a way out. I pushed myself harder, my legs burning with effort as I sprinted toward it, the sound of my footsteps echoing around me, each step louder, closer. The closer I got, the more the light seemed to shift, to move away from me, just out of reach. It was like a mirage, a cruel joke. Every time I thought I was almost there, it drifted further, and the road felt more oppressive. The shadows more suffocating. Suddenly, there was a sharp pain in my chest. It wasn't just physical, it was like something inside me had snapped. Like the road had reached into me and was squeezing, pulling at something deep within. My vision blurred. My knees buckled, and I fell to the ground, my hands scraping against the asphalt as I tried to catch my breath. The darkness closed in around me, and I thought, for a fleeting moment, that I was going to die right there. The road would claim me, and I would be just another lost soul wandering its endless path. Just another shadow, another forgotten name. But then, just as quickly as the pain came, it faded. I looked up, dazed, and saw the light again. It was still there, and this time, it wasn't moving. It was a door. A real, solid door standing in the middle of the road, glowing softly, beckoning me. I scrambled to my feet, not caring about the pain anymore. One had to get to the door. This was my chance. The road had tried to kill me, tried to break me, but this was my escape. It had to be. I ran again, pushing myself faster, harder, until I reached the door. The moment my hand touched the handle, the world around me froze. The rumbling stopped. The air went still. The door creaked open, revealing a blinding light. I stepped through. I stumbled into the light, and for a moment, I was blinded, unable to see anything. But then slowly, the world around me began to take shape. The light faded, and I found myself standing in an empty room, dimly lit by a single hanging bulb. The air smelled stale, like an old, abandoned building. It wasn't the road, but it wasn't normal either. I looked around, my heart pounding in my chest. There was nothing in the room. No windows, no doors, just cracked walls and peeling paint. But I knew one thing for sure, I was no longer on the road. I had escaped, or so I thought. I moved toward the only door I could see. It was old, heavy, and rusted, but when I touched the handle, it turned easily. The moment I stepped through it, the room behind me disappeared, and I found myself standing on another road. But this one was different. This road was empty. Number. Shadows, no creatures, no rumbling beneath my feet. Just a long, straight path stretching into the horizon. I breathed a sigh of relief. For the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel the crushing weight of the road on my shoulders. I wasn't trapped anymore, but then something caught my eye. A figure appeared in the distance. It was small, almost like a child. I hesitated, but curiosity pushed me forward. I moved toward it, my steps cautious, unsure. As I got closer, I saw the child's face, a pale, lifeless face, with hollow eyes staring at me. The smile that spread across the child's lips wasn't friendly. It was the same twisted grin the woman had worn, the same expression I had seen in the darkness. "No," I whispered, taking a step back. "No, no, no." But it was too late. The child started walking toward me, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, its body jerking with every step. I turned to run, but the road was already shifting, the ground beneath me trembling as the path changed, splitting in two, forcing me down a new direction. I couldn't escape. Not again. I ran once more, but this time I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know where I had come from. I was trapped. Every time I thought I was free, the road would pull me back. The figure, whatever it was, followed me, its eyes locked on mine, never blinking, never turning away. It wasn't just the road anymore. It was something else, something worse. As I ran, the air around me thickened. I could feel the darkness creeping in, pushing at the edges of my mind, threatening to swallow me whole. And then I heard it again, the whispering voices. Hundreds of them, thousands, all around me, all at once, their voices rising in a chorus of despair, of pain, of endless regret. They were the lost ones, the ones who had come before me, the ones who had been claimed by the road. And now they were calling for me, pulling at me, trying to drag me down into the same endless darkness they had fallen into. I stumbled, my legs giving way beneath me. I fell to the ground, gasping for air, trying to fight the overwhelming sense of dread that was flooding my senses. The road wasn't just a place. It was a living nightmare, a prison without walls, a maze without an exit. I closed my eyes, desperate to shut it all out. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't keep running. The road had won. It had claimed me, just like it had claimed so many others before me. But just as I thought I was done, as I thought I had given up, I felt something changed. It wasn't the road shifting this time. It was me. I opened my eyes, and for the first time since I'd stepped onto this cursed path, I felt something inside me shift. It wasn't fear. It wasn't dread. It was something else, something stronger. Something that had been buried deep inside me all along. The road had claimed my body. It had consumed my soul. But it couldn't take my will. I still had that. I still had my mind. I stood up, slowly but firmly, and I started walking again. Not away from the road, not toward it, but through it. The road could no longer control me. I was stronger now, and maybe, just maybe, there was a way out. I walked. Slowly at first, my steps uncertain, but as I moved forward, something inside me began to shift. The road felt less oppressive, less suffocating. The whispers faded, the shadows receded, and the air grew warmer. It wasn't a victory, not yet. But it was a choice. I had chosen to keep moving, to keep fighting, even if it meant walking straight into the unknown. Because that was the only way to survive. The road had tried to break me. It had tried to swallow me whole. But in the end, I hadn't given in. I hadn't let it consume me completely. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was how you survived. The road stretched out before me, still dark, still endless, but now it felt different. It felt mine. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't running anymore. I was walking. Step by step, carving my own path through the darkness. And maybe, just maybe, that was how you found your way out.